Hi, my name is Janell, and welcome to Table Talks. I am your host, and I'm sitting down with Aowyn Jones, a healer, master healer, energy practitioner who has an incredible gift to connect to the inner person, to help them be seen. This is, as I chatted with Aowyn, I have found this to be true. She's very present in your conversation, and this is moving. It sets the stage for people to feel themselves and to feel free to open up and identify whatever's ready to be healed. What a superpower, what a gift. Has studied and has graduated after a 2-year training with Hukomi method, which is a Hukomi method, a method of body-centered psychotherapy and the recreation of self-model of the human system. See, she's an energy medicine practitioner, and she also is devoted to Kundalini Yoga and is a Kundalini Yoga teacher. So some potent medicine, a lovely soul, and I'm so glad that you have joined us to listen to her work. Go grab your coffee and your tea, and let's jump in. Hey, Owen, it's so wonderful that you've joined us. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Aowyn is a healer and an energy medical practitioner. But before we dive into that deeper and take a look at what that means, because there's a lot of pieces that you bring to the table, a lot of different works that you've brought together to help and support people as they shift, grow, and all the fun things you're going to share with us. But before we dive into that, what has happened in your life that has brought you to do the work that you do?
Yeah. Well, I from a very early age, I was always um, curious about spirits and ghosts, and I thought I saw a few things here and there, and um, I think that was just always kind of in my awareness
Hmm.
as I was growing up. I was a dancer. I was a dance performer. I started when I was 8. Stopped performing when I was 37. And so that was a big part of my life, just being in my body and processing emotions and energies through my body. A lot of the work that we were making was very consciousness based, like entering a certain consciousness and allowing that to move our bodies.
Hmm.
That's the way we created a lot of the shows that we were doing. So I was already starting to work, I guess you could say, holistically in that way. And when I stopped dancing, I did not know what I was going to do with myself. And I'm just remembering now, I read uh, uh, Finding Your Own North Star by Martha Beck.
Hmm.
Great book for anyone who is trying to find their inner compass. And through that process, it became just so clear all of these moments of my life of just being with people and helping them and supporting them. I knew that I was meant to do that in some way, more than just in my personal life. And so I started exploring what that might be. I think by then I had already done um, uh, Reiki 1 and 2. And so I was already delivering energy medicine.
Mhm.
Um, And so I started to look for how I could move more into sort of a private practice kind of a thing. And I came upon a training in the Hakomi method of body-centered psychotherapy and the recreation of the self model of human systems. So I went and did a 2-year training in those things and just really learned how to be with people, how to be truly present,
Hmm.
um, and found that it was very natural to me to just show up in my own authenticity and allow my vibration to begin to invite others to come out in that way. Um, I was also doing some shamanic journeying quite a bit. And so through that practice, I really started to learn about ceremony and ritual, and how to hold space in those ways. So over time, I just started to weave all of this together.
Hmm.
I started to invite people to come for sessions, and gosh, I guess I started seeing people one-on-one. It must have been 2013, I think, 2013. So just over 10 years ago, and in the course of that time, my work just continues to grow and change and evolve while I do that on my own. So, and of course, along the way, a really significant piece was my own healing. I was very committed to my own healing process from a surprisingly young age. And I did it in a very self-guided kind of way. I remember in my 20s just writing a book about everything that had happened and how I was processing it in the moment. And while I didn't really know what I was doing, there was some sense that I was healing. And so I continued to pursue my own healing process in therapy. I worked with somatic therapists and Hakomi therapist. I worked with energy practitioners and shamans. And I think the thing that was most important for me throughout those years of healing was really understanding the importance of honoring the moment when something needs to move. I didn't hesitate to, and I still don't hesitate, if something is coming up in the moment, to request a pause in any conversation so that I can process and move whatever needs to happen. In
So
fact,
you were really in tune as a kiddo. You were really in tune to to what you were feeling. Is that how you describe it? In tune to what you were feeling?
as a kid, yes, that is how I would say it. Yeah.
And were you highly empathic as well? Would you look back and say, yes, I was very empathic, or how would you describe that little gifted soul?
Um, no, I wouldn't say that I was empathic as a child.
Mhm.
Um, but I did know that feelings were important.
Hmm.
And, that was before I think people started to acknowledge that really. I always really honored my feelings.
That is
And
really unique
yeah,
because so many of us, you know, you just aren't supposed to feel.
yeah,
You get to feel joy, you get to feel a few of these things, but you don't get to, not the spectrum. Many have learned that that's a belief. We just shove those down. I was a great shover, personally, great shover. And then later, so for you to, later I went, okay, no, this is not helping me at all. We need to shift this. So it's so neat that as a young person, that was something you just naturally was bringing to life. I can feel this. That's so cool.
yeah, I feel very blessed in that way.
Yeah. And you
Mm.
mentioned that you're also a knower. Were you a knower of that in that time, or is that something that's developed as you've done the energy work?
So I started to know that I was a knower probably right about the time I started to see clients.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I'd had a couple of examples of knowing things before. Um, but yeah, I just started really tuning into what was coming through, just sitting in my center and opening myself into a beautiful, expansive place in the presence of another person. The
Hmm.
knowings just started to come.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And is knowing in your mind similar to a psychic gift, or are they at two different um roads or gifts?
I don't consider myself a psychic.
Okay.
Um, and I'm sure that somebody else might call me a psychic, but that just doesn't resonate for me. It's more just about a knowing.
Okay.
And sometimes the knowing shows up as something that might be a little bit like seeing, but it's really not. Or it might be a little bit like feeling, but mostly it's just a knowing.
It just pops in. I know this now.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, because simply that we give terms to things, and I was channeling the other day, and I was asking specifically about a few things, and they're like, okay, you humans like terms and terminology, you like to name things. And I said, well, yeah, we do, because we get to talk about them. So we do give things names, but names also then can kind of box a concept in, or, things like that as well, because it does have sometimes a limiting factor. So
Right.
psychic, what is that? Knowing, being a knower, what is that? Or is it an expression of how your gift works with you, whatever it is, how your gift works with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that my knowing shows up a lot in just seeing the truth in another person.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that's the primary thing that I do in my work. When I sit with another person, I just soften and open to the truth of who they are. You can see all the layers, that are covering up and maybe even hiding it from them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I sit in the knowing of a person's truth until they're able to know it for themselves.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
bet that is so supportive in shifting and helping somebody. We all desire to be seen, don't we? Without judgment, we desire to be
Right.
seen.
Mhm.
What is the value from your lens of seeing people for who they authentically are, whatever the pieces are?
What's the value for them?
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Well,
What?
um, it can stun people to experience being seen because very often people aren't seen or they don't feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so to have someone sit in lovingness
Mm-hmm.
um, and acceptance um, and to see another person, it can crack a person's heart wide open.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it can bring a true sense of relief, like existential relief. It comes often with a feeling of belonging
Mm-hmm.
and just a profound sense that it's okay to be me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we long for that, don't we? I was listening to it wasn't an interview, but Oprah. It's an old Oprah. It popped up on my phone one day, and she was speaking to a story that she was sharing when she was little, and it was Christmas, and they didn't have anything, and some sisters from the local church down the road brought them gifts, and the feeling that came with the gift was, I see you. I see you. And that was one of the most impactful moments of her life, she said, because she said, we have that deep need to be truly seen. And it's a fear. We learn to cover that because we feel that we need to protect that, don't we? If I am ultimately and me or all out authentically me and I am seen as me, then I will be so different and different is scary, or whatever the emotion around that could be for different people. But I just thought that was so cool. It touched me to be seen. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
powerful.
Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah, I've sort of pushed myself into that in the course of my life, and I think that that really supports my work with others. I just had this memory come in of during our wedding, my wedding to my husband Peter. I just had this moment. We were about to come into this part of the ritual it was like the moment of commitment. And I could feel how big it was. And I could feel that I just wasn't there. I just wasn't like open and fully present. And I just stopped everything and started just jumping and shaking it all out and just took it all out. And I remember people were giggling. But Peter knows me. And so he just beautifully held space for me because he knows that I show up as I am. So I shook it out and was able to ground and be there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What was the moment in your life that you realized that was what you would do, that you would be that real, that whatever that real is at that moment? Was there a shifting point, or was this a gradual process for you?
Hmm. Well, the moment that comes to mind um, is actually my 37th birthday, when I started a ritual that I kept up for really until the last couple of years, of inviting people into my space, um, and having them circle up. Just a small, intimate gathering of people. And I would just speak at length about myself and what had happened for me in the last year, how I'd changed and grown, and how I'd been challenged, and where I was feeling challenged in the moment, and the prayers I was making for myself. And that was a conscious choice to be seen, and to experience what that would feel like to be held by my beloved people, my friends,
Mm.
my partner, um, and to just soak that in. Um, and then I would invite their reflection of me as well, to just be able to receive um, that kind of way of being seen. So I guess if I had to pick a moment, it would probably be that.
And that was started a practice of being seen then for you.
I think so. Yeah.
Are
Mm-hmm.
there other ways? Because people listening, they may, okay, they're saying, oh my gosh, you're speaking to me. I need to be seen. I need to practice being seen. Are there other ways that they could set up a be seen moment for themselves?
Yeah. So the thing that comes is um, maybe just connecting with a person who you trust, um, and finding a nice private time together to just ask, like, I was wondering if you would be willing to just be with me while I share some things about how I'm feeling right now,
Mm.
or something that's happening in my life, um, and just invite that witnessing, that being seen, um, from someone who you feel really good with, someone who loves you and cares about you. And get really mindful while you're doing it, and see what it feels like. Like, wow, I notice I'm feeling really nervous right now, or I'm really afraid to say this. And that can come out in the moment. I'm feeling really afraid and nervous right now. Um, just asking that person to hold space for you and be with you through that process.
Hmm. Nice. I was
Yeah.
on the beach that I shared with you earlier that we were doing this healing around the Lemurian energy and a lot of other pieces there. But there was a clip, and as you're saying, use your voice. There was a clip at the end of the healing And I feel like it was partially for me. And I feel it was for the collective. Often these healings have two parts to them. And one of the beings that I embodied was a wolf. He came in. And I'm the only one on the beach. I think I would have done it even if there was a ton of people on the beach. I would have been red and embarrassed, but it was supposed to happen. So I'm like, okay, just go for it. And I howled at the top of my lungs. I
Yeah.
howled like a wolf to the sky. And so I'm debriefing this with a fellow healer, and she's like, it was an activation, it was about voice, it's about expression, but this is something that I feel as a collective, and I love your thoughts on this, as a collective that we're really shifting into using our voice, but it in this authentic way, in this from who we are as a being way. Are you seeing this as well? Can you speak to that?
Hmm. I do see more people certainly showing up authentically. I mean, you see it all over the internet, for sure, on social media. People are becoming more vulnerable. Um, most of the people who I work with,
Mhm.
um, this is what they're working on, is just showing up in their truth. First, knowing what their truth is, and then showing up in their truth, having a voice, practicing that in the world.
Hmm, nice. And what is keeping us from doing that? What's at the root of this, do you think?
Well, I think so much of the layering, the beliefs that
Mm.
get programmed into us, from the moment we're born, into a physical body, um, beliefs about what's right and what's not right, and how we should be and how we shouldn't be, and um, the appropriateness of shame. People are taught that it's good to be ashamed of yourself. Um, all kinds of things that just put people into hiding. Now, I I do think that um, that's shifting now. I do think that the younger people are receiving much less of that
Mhm.
these days than you and I did,
Yeah.
um, and it's such a pleasure to watch parents just invite their kids to be who they are and express themselves. Um, and let them follow their noses, follow their hearts, feel their hearts. Parents helping their kids to know their own hearts.
Oh, isn't that
Uh,
huge?
it's huge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is so huge. Is this part of you describe what you could talk about experiential healing? Is this part, can you kind of tell us what is experiential healing?
Yeah. So I have found that talking to someone in a conversational sort of way about problems, things that people are wanting to change about themselves or the way they experience life, talk only goes so far. A lot of people will receive words as medicine, but often it doesn't totally land if you're just talking.
Mhm.
Um, Likewise, with some energy medicine practices, it's very much about the practitioner is doing something to someone, and the person is there, they're being passive, and they're receiving a beautiful energy healing. Um, so, in my work, in experiential healing, I do talk with people for a bit just to get a sense of what we're opening, what we're bringing into the field for healing. And then at a certain point, I can just sense that it's the time to go a little deeper. And so I'll invite people to turn inward, and I'll help them into a state of mindfulness. Mindfulness, in this case, being the ability to have your experience, your inner world experience, and also report about it from a non-judgmental place. And so around a certain theme that is up, I will have people experience whatever they're experiencing on the inside, feelings, emotions, sensations in their body. Maybe their body's doing something. We'll just notice all the parts of the world, the inner world that gets lit up around a certain theme. Memories might show up, images, energetic sensations in the body. We just let all of that be. And so they're in their experience, and I help them to really embody their experience. And I will help to really specifically guide people to move their awareness to different parts of their experience in order to highlight certain things, and perhaps, well, not perhaps, but to bring healing into those places in different ways. There are different things that I might do to bring the healing depending on what they're working with. Very often it's delivering a missing experience. So maybe someone is really suffering from the way a parent or a person spoke to them in a very particular moment of life. I might deliver the words that should have been said to them in that moment. And so if a person is fully embodied and immersed in their world of experience, and maybe even a time and a place where a wounding occurred, they're more open and ready to receive healing. And so I can bring that in different ways, like I said. And some of that might be hands-on energy work in those moments. I also sing sounds and songs that may or may not have words in English or other languages that can also support an opening to receive the healing.
Yeah, because sound breaks down stuck emotion. Sound softens. So instead of trying to remove a brick, we're now removing powder because the sound energy. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So is this part of the Hukomi method that you're describing?
So I did learn that in Hakomi,
Okay.
but I didn't go down the path of being a therapist. And so the way that I do it is not exactly what I learned in that training. And partly that's just because I do bring in the world of energy. There might be guides in the room who are supporting us.
Yeah, you're
Might use some.
bringing a holistic approach of healing. You're not just say this is my method. You've got this broad, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as you describe yourself, I'm like, okay, I get it. You've studied a lot of different modalities, and that guides that support you and the person that you're supporting have their guides. And as you channel energy, it is going to match what is needed for them at that moment, whether it's coming through your sound, channeling sound, light language, a type of, I don't know if you're calling it light language. In my world, I call it light language, but it's that beautiful medicine mix that you can package, if you will, based on what is the best support for that individual you're looking at. Am I getting it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Spirit calls me a weaver.
Okay, that totally makes sense because that's what I see. When I see you when you're talking, that's what I'm seeing. It's like, okay, you're bringing in, okay, so you're visualizing that person that you're supporting, and all of these different, you're pulling from different dimensions, you're pulling from different sources of love, light, and energy frequencies to weave together that medicine. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a lot about shepherding them in their awareness.
Sure.
People, we can so easily just wander off and get lost and go down a rabbit hole. And I can get a little bossy actually in really directing people to move their awareness right where it needs to be to receive the healing or the attunement.
Why?
And
Why is that so important? Why is it important for them to land on the bullseye, so to speak, or that spot that you can see?
well, I mean, our awareness is so powerful. It is,
Mm.
it's everything. It is the divine within us. And so if we can just let our awareness rest in just the right place,
Mm.
we expand.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's there to be seen.
And it's there to be seen. Yeah.
Exactly. Or it wouldn't be there. Yeah. Nice. Isn't that neat? Ah, so fun. That is so fun. So shamanic, because you studied shamanic medicine. Can you paint a picture for those listening? What is shamanic medicine?
Mm.
How would you describe that?
Well, I'm not quite sure what shamanic medicine would be, but I can talk a little bit about my own work and why it has been called shamanic, or
Okay.
yeah. Um, so I occasionally will guide people into journey space.
Mhm.
I don't use a drum, but I will use words to help them move into the imaginal realm. Um, you might call it another dimension. And in that space, other kinds of work can happen. It's the kind of place where you might meet your spirit animal, or you might encounter a younger part of yourself, maybe a part of yourself who is still experiencing some wounding, or a future self who already knows what you don't maybe know from this point of perspective.
Mm.
And so in that place, different kinds of guidance can be found. Different kinds of awakenings and healings can happen in those places, because it's other dimensional
Mm.
or imaginal, where anything can happen.
Okay.
And so I have never wanted to call myself a shaman. Doesn't quite feel right because I haven't been initiated through any specific lineages or traditions.
Mm.
But a number of people over the years who have worked with me have called it that. So
So what do you think identifies? There's, again, we're talking about different names that we've been given for different kinds of works. And for people understanding, if when you see shaman or a shaman work, what really identifies shaman work to you?
hmm.
How would you describe that?
Well, I mean, there are shamans in so many different cultures.
Mhm.
Um, I think when we talk about shamans today, I mean, there are a lot of people who are um, going through shamanic initiations. And very often, traditionally, what that means is they are they're often doing what people call a soul retrieval. And that happens in a specific way with a drum that is beat at a certain rate to help people into kind of a trance state, to enter that imaginal realm or the shamanic realm and do the work in that place. I think
And it
I
seems to be
see a lot.
earthy, isn't it? Would you put that in there too? There seems to be an
It
earth
is
element.
It is. It's very reverent of the directions and the elements, the spirits within those elements, the guides and animals and minerals and rocks and crystals, who are present in each of the elements and the directions. Um, when I One of the things that I do with clients, I typically do the experiential healing with people in chunks of 6 or 8 or more sessions, but I also hold private healing ceremonies. And these ceremonies have a shamanic feel to them, in that I call in a sacred container, from the 7 directions, um, east, south, west, north, above, below, and within, and inviting a super potent, sacred, energetic container to hold the work, before we even begin. So these are just some of the, I guess, shamanic elements.
And so important. I think the container for people seeking healing and healing support, that piece is huge. Someone that is aware that that needs to happen within and around a clearing or a healing or however someone's being worked with. That container is super important, isn't it? Yeah. And I know that I've listened to different stories and they're going, well, what's a container? I said, oh, honey, we that's so, yes, it's that protection and grounding, not out of fear, but out of wisdom and grounding of that healing. Yeah, super cool. So when they find, so when what would be okay, this is how I want to ask it, came to me. What am I feeling? What are people feeling, experiencing that would be keys or clues that I need to reach out to you for support? What would they be experiencing, seeing, feeling?
If you're just feeling like there's something more to life, if you're wanting life to feel sacred and not just like you're just going along, if you're looking for a sense of meaning, purpose, and certainly if you're wanting to be seen, learning to use your voice, learning how to show up authentically, and just really, if you want to come into the knowing that everything's okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice, beautiful. And that's a place of being in peace. Those things you described, what came to my mind was that being in a place of like real peace. I am. And it's good. And that's peace, isn't it? From the inside out.
That's right.
Yeah. Beautiful.
I also support people as they are sort of awakening their abilities, as people start to come into this understanding of ourselves as divine creators and manifestors, creating our lived experience and the reality that we move in. I help people in those places as well. And that tends to look a little bit more like channeled. I deliver truth through words with people in a very mindful, open state, so that those words of truth about the openings that they are experiencing can really land in their system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's our blind spot? Where do you think a blind spot is for us humans?
I think I'm having one right now.
Because, yeah, as you're talking, I'm going, okay, you're bringing truth. You're bringing awareness. So, where's our blind spots as people?
I think I'm not totally understanding your question.
Like, maybe I don't either. I just have a thing that keeps showing me in my mind. And it's like we're living or doing, and what aren't we seeing that's right there in front of us? What are we commonly walking past, but yet there it is?
The first thing that comes is I think I think people can really walk around with the feeling of this is all there is.
Hmm. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not realizing, not realizing just how powerful and expansive we are, and and how magical this life can be. Not that having a magical life needs to be anyone's goal, but there is an element of bringing spirit into our lived experience, I think, that can make life feel so purposeful and meaningful, and more whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're not just going along day to day. Some people don't realize that just bringing a little mindfulness in can open up so much.
Yeah. To existing and really living. That's, yeah, you nailed it. Good job. And you mentioned self-care. We're going to end this with self-care. What are some self-care tips that you could share with us?
I believe so strongly in having a morning practice. I really recommend to all of my clients and anyone who wants to listen to take some time in the morning, every morning, really committing to it and finding that experience of devotion, which is really discipline plus commitment, to just be with yourself and drop in some way that feels really right for you, whether that's meditating silently or with a guided meditation, or making prayers, or doing some stretching, or some yoga, or journaling, or one of my favorite morning practices is taking a cold shower.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it's the first thing I do every day,
Oh,
actually.
wow.
Yeah, just committing to that and having that consistency. It's just a way of getting centered and acknowledging ourselves as being worthy of care, so that we can start to really get that into our knowing as we move through the rest of our lives. And over time, daily practice, it's cumulative. It's the effects of a regular daily devotional practice are cumulative, and it again just brings that expansiveness to life.
Yeah, it makes you alive, doesn't it?
It
You
does.
are alive in these, you're creating those moments, you are alive. I'm going to, so as you were talking, I'm like, okay, I'm hearing you. I need one of these. I'm going to, I'm going to, two things that just jumped out at me is like, I need to express what I'm feeling no matter what it is, and I don't care what it is. I'm just going to, it's just coming out of me. And I'm going to either journal it if I'm around paper, or I'm just going to speak it in a container. And I'm just going to say it because that is going to, I need that flow. This is just becoming so loud for me. It's like, okay, I get it. I get it. I need to do this. And I'm going to dance it out. I'm going to dance it out, whatever it is. And so
Yeah.
I'll spill into my day, and I'm going to just ask guidance in my body. When is the dancing it out going to be? When's that the most beneficial? Because I think it's going to vary for me. I think I just can kind of feel that. Like sometimes it's going to be my first thing I wake up and I'm just going to dance it out, or it's going to be sometime during the day, but I'm going to be open to that flexibility.
Nice.
So those that have joined us, the challenge is out on the table. Pick your practice. What are you going to do? Share with us in the comments. And we look forward to seeing what creative thing comes from you. Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Aowyn, you have also brought us a gift, $50 off a container of 6 healings. Thank you. And we've got the link for that. We've got a link for your website so people can take a look at what you're doing, how they can connect with you and get that beautiful healing that you offer. So this is going to be in the subject right at the top. When you guys go to the subject, and the description of this video, you're going to see that right in the top sentence. So click that, get connected. And we look forward to hearing what beautiful things happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
As I'd mentioned, this was a potent and beautiful conversation, touching topics of healing and how healing can happen, opening your mind to, hey, this type of work reaches deep into our hearts and creating in a space of absolute acceptance and love. And that's really where the shifts happen. Your intuitive gifts are waiting for you to connect to them. If you've been wondering how your gifts work, or how do you look when you're intuitive? We talked about everybody's gifts show up for them unique to them. Some people have the gift of knowing, but what's that look like? Some people have the psychic gift, the empathic gifts to feel, and how does that show up for you? If this has been your question, let's set up a conversation and chat. In the description, you will see a link to connect with me. Let's set up a conversation, a free 30-minute call, and see what are your gifts? How does your intuition and this authentic part of you work with you? I look forward to meeting you. I'm glad you were here with us today. Till the next time, we'll see you. Thank you for being here. And if you like this video and you got value from this video, hit the like, subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell so you get notified that the next one is live. See you at our next Table Talk.